Hi, my name is Eddie Drury. I've been working as a positive behaviour support practitioner for the past 13 years, and I'd like to talk to you today about data collection. Specifically, why data collection is hard, how it can be better, and then introduce you to a tool I have built to help with this. We all know how important good quality data is to PBS, but we all also know just how hard it is to get good data. Over the years, I've tried everything I could think of to get staff to complete my form. Training, email reminders, asking nicely, asking not so nicely, nothing made any difference. No matter what I did, the data I collected would have huge gaping holes in it, and that's if I got any data at all. Okay, so we have an incomplete data set. Is this really such a big problem? Surely patchy data is better than no data. Honestly, not really. Let's say we have numbers that look like this. What can we learn from this? Well, this data tells us that the behaviour is happening an average of 6 times per week. But what's the real number here? It could be double this, it could be 10 times this number. We have no way of knowing. Anything we say here would just be a guess. But what about if we look at the trend in the data? At least then we can get a sense for how the behaviour is changing over time. If we put this data into a graph, we can see a solid downward trend here. That looks encouraging. Looks like the behaviour is reducing over time, right? Maybe, but it's just as possible that as time is passing, staff are getting increasingly likely to forget to fill in our forms. Again, we have no way of knowing what's really happening here. And this is more or less how it's been for the past 13 years I've been doing this job. I'd get patchy data that I couldn't trust, and I'd have to ask myself, why am I even bothering to collect this in the first place? I remember a few years ago when QR codes became very fashionable. I was so excited. Here comes technology to save the day, I thought. But I soon found it's exactly the same problem. QR codes are just a more high-tech way to be ignored. The fundamental problem here is this. We know we're missing data, but we have no idea how much. At the moment, what we have is this, but what we need is this. When we use paper forms or QR codes, we're effectively using a data collection strategy called voluntary response sampling. When this thing happens, complete this form. This couldn't be simpler, so why doesn't it work? The reason why staff don't fill in our forms is not because they don't care, and it's not because they're lazy. It's much worse than that. The problem is we have employed human beings with human memories. Put yourself in their shoes. Your client just had an escalation. You're stressed out and there's 100 things you have to do. In the midst of all of that, would you really remember that 3 months ago at that training you attended with that very friendly PBS practitioner, that they asked you to fill in a form in this exact situation? That's just not how human brains work. Human memory is utterly unreliable, yet we're utterly reliant on it. So how can we fix this problem? We need to remember that filling in a data collection form is a behaviour, just like any other. We're behaviour specialists. We're supposed to be good at this stuff. So let's go back to our behavioural ABCs and analyse this behaviour to see where it's going wrong. Our antecedent is the client escalating. Our behaviour is the staff member completing the form. And our consequence or our outcome is nothing. Absolutely nothing. Nothing in this support worker's world is going to change at all as a result of completing or not completing this form. There's nothing in place to reinforce this behaviour, so why are we surprised when it doesn't happen? So now at least we have clearly defined the problem. With traditional data collection methods, missing data is invisible, there's no accountability, and we are relying on memory. Fortunately, there's a very simple solution to all three of these problems. Just collect null data. It's just this simple. At the end of every shift, staff complete the forms regardless of whether or not the target behaviour happened. This way, missing data stands out. Because missing data stands out, we can hold staff accountable. And because we can hold staff accountable, data collection becomes a habit. When I first came across this model, I was very excited and set out to find a data collection tool to do this. I tried everything I could get my hands on, Google Forms, Microsoft Forms, SurveyMonkey, but to my deep frustration, none of these tools had the needed features. So I ended up biting the bullet and I built the tool myself. It's called Data Informed Behaviour Support, or DIBS for short. I've been using it with my clients for the past 2 years and it has completely transformed the way I work, and I'm really excited to be able to share it with others. And so now let me show you the tool itself. Meet Gary Stiles. Gary is a young man living in supported accommodation. He has 2 shifts per day. And looking at his entry, we can very clearly see there is missing data here for the day shift on Tuesday, June 3. And if we want to follow that up, we can simply click here, click on Send Reminder, choose the staff member who was working that day. It was Kyle Horan, and then click on Send Reminder. And now, having done that, in mere moments, Kyle is going to get an email that looks exactly like this. Kyle can click on this link, he can send the information that we're missing. And so we see, just like that, in one fell swoop, we've solved all 3 of our problems. Without a doubt, the killer feature of Dibs is that you get data you can trust. But let me show you the other key features. Firstly, you can tailor everything to suit your clients. Our clients are all unique, and one-size-fits-all data collection tools just do not work. So when you create a new form, you can choose from a pre-existing list of templates that you can then edit. You can choose from a list of templates that you yourself have created, which you can then edit, or you can create your own form from scratch. Let's give our new form a name, and having done that, we can create as many questions as we want. We can set the question, we can choose the data type we want, and we can choose whether we want this question to be required or optional. We can have as many different forms as we want, and we can also nest forms one inside of the other. We can set rules for when we do and do not want the form to be completed. So we can have it completed during some shifts and not others. We can set it up so it is only completed once per week or day or month. We can choose which specific staff member we want to complete it. We can also set it up so that it will automatically stop collecting data after a particular given date. And finally, we can get it to send email alerts to ourselves. I find this really handy to send myself an email alert anytime there is a physical injury caused or police attendance, for example. And we can use Dibs to analyze the data we have collected. Dibs automatically generates real-time data analytics for us. For each question, you get key statistics like the average, the median, the standard deviation. We get a chart that'll summarize the whole set of data for us, and we get a chart that will plot it as a function of time. We can also generate a chart that will show us how often each staff member is filling in a given report. So for example, we could see which staff members are taking our clients into the community and which are not. We can download these charts. We can export the raw data so we can analyze it ourselves if we like. We can also use it to track the use of restrictive practices, and it'll then generate a convenient monthly report of all restrictive practices used. We can invite other people to view the client's information, be this the individual themselves or another stakeholder, and we can fine-tune what level of access they get. So they can access only to write new information, to read all of the existing information other people have entered, to actually edit the forms, or we can give them access to invite new users themselves. And because it is handling very sensitive information, all care has been taken with security and privacy. It uses bank level encryption, fully compliant with the Australian privacy principles, and all information is stored on servers located in Australia. So let me give you a demo of what it looks like when you're up and running with Dibs. Let's say I just got an email from Gary's team leader. Gary had an escalation today, staff member was injured and they want my help. So nowadays when I get these emails, I look onto Dibs to see what's going on. My first port of call would be to look at the escalation in question. So it happened today. Let's click on this here. It started at 10 a.m, went for 2 hours. Was triggered by a loud motorbike. He pulled hair, banged his head, threw shoes, and a PRN was administered. Okay. Next up, I am interested to see how things have been going generally for Gary. So I want to see, is this escalation an isolated incident or is this part of a pattern? So let's look at the chart. This is pretty interesting. We have only one escalation happening in this nearly 2-week period. And then all of a sudden on the 5th of June here, we have escalations starting every day. So something has happened here and it started on June 5. Next up, I'm curious to see which staff member have and have not been seeing escalations. So let's look at these staff charts for escalations. And interestingly, look, everybody's seeing escalations. This isn't just about one particular staff member. Let's look at what has been triggering these escalations for Gary. So if I click here, I can see motorbike, cigarettes, batteries. These are pretty evenly spread. Once again, it's not that one thing is happening all the time, so this doesn't really tell me much either. So let's start to think about setting events. I know Gary is prone to illness, so let's see how he's been doing lately. So here we can see it looks like he had a cold around about these days, but he'd recovered by the 4th and things didn't start going bad until the 5th. So I don't think that's probably what's going on. What about sleep? So let's check it out and let's look at this. Sleep is doing really well, but suddenly around the 5th, it takes a really sudden nosedive. And this matches perfectly with when the escalation started. This really fits with us. And just like that, with a few minutes of doodling about, I have a good sense for what's going on and I have a very strong lead to track down sleep. As you can see, having data you can trust really changes things. This data has so many uses for FBAs and behaviour support plans, obviously, but it's also really useful to use as evidence at NDIS planning meetings. It's great data to show to a psychiatrist when we're talking about reduction of chemical restraints. Without a doubt, I can say having good quality data has made me a better PBS practitioner. So that is the tool in a nutshell. My aim here was to provide a high-level overview of how it works, rather than diving into the details of each individual feature. If you're interested in a deeper dive, I've put together a playlist of videos that walk through each feature step by step. But for now, thank you for your time, and go to dibsapp.net to get started.